Alright everybody, I'm sure you can see why I started the video up. There's this nice white line running right about there. It wasn't there until I clear coated and all of a sudden it appeared. I'm going to try to remedy it. If not, I'm going to have to tear that part off and figure out what's wrong and redo it. Alright. I think the part had a nice crack in it and I didn't see it. And the clear coat got in there and pulled in the crack and discolored it. Just brought out the edges of the crack. I'm going to try to paint some future on it. The funny thing is, there's a similar line on this side of the Prelude. You can see it if you look close enough. Now, one thing Dr. Cranky said, always have two of the same model. That way if you break something, you can fix it. I will have a second one of these very soon, and since the contest is not over until Friday, this being Friday, I've got 1 week, I can fix that when I get the second one here. Okay, and then the second one I can make my rice rocket that I wanted to do with the oversized fart can and the girl tattoo across the front and everything else. And that'll be a fun project. Probably won't be as detailed as this because, well, this is a contest build. And I suspect those rice people don't really pay much attention to the engine of the car. They just make the outside look crazy. Alright, be back in a bit. Aren't I the pretty sight? My old eyes are not what they used to be, so I use the Optivisor on top of the magnifying glasses, and I can see incredibly fine detail this way. Okay, another thing I'm doing is BB has leftover paper from painting, and I use that as a placemat on my work as I'm working. Oop, wrong way. Primarily because it's easy to clean that up. I can paint right there. I can clean my, whenever I get paint out of the bottle on a brush, there's always too much paint, so I just dab it on the paper instead of the edge of the bottle, because you dab it on the edge of the bottle and you just end up with this crusty buildup around the top of the bottle. And by dabbing it inside the bottle, I don't get that. And by wiping it on the paper, it goes away pretty quick. Alright, so I just wanted to share that. Optivisor, dollar store magnifying glasses. I can see good details. I can clean it up. I just looked at the steering wheel under this, and I hadn't done that, and went, so I'm going to fix the steering wheel real quick. The yelling in the background is one of the cats. She does that every day about this time for a little while. Don't know why. Anyhow, be back in a little while. Okay, here's something else I'm learning. The brush matters. Alright, I went out and I bought this brush right here. It's got a very fine little point on it. And this brush here, that has a much larger point, does a better job painting. It's because it's a higher quality brush. This brush here probably costs more than the whole set of like 8 brushes I got that had this in it. Alright, so a quality brush makes a difference. Andy X has got a very excellent series of brush painting videos up, and I suggest all of you go look at it because they're good, and he explains a lot of this better than I can, or he has already explained it all, so there's no point in my trying. He's done a good job of it. So I'll put links to those videos at the bottom of this. Alright, just letting you guys know, I prefer this bigger brush over this tiny little brush. I bought this tiny little brush thinking, ooh, this is going to be good. Look at that brush. No. I get better accuracy with this one, which just seems strange, but it's true. And that's one of the things he said in this video. Get the biggest brush you can with the size point on it you want. Holds paint better. Alright, be back in a little while. Okay, I forgot something else. Alright. Andy talked about thinner. I'm using Tamiya paint, so I use alcohol as the thinner for my brushes on that. But I keep 2 jars of thinner. This thinner right here is for my paint mixer. This guy. Okay? I mix it and then I turn it on in this jar. So this is constantly mixed. There's sedimentation on the bottom, but not huge amounts. This is my brush painting jar. It has one of those wire whisk on it, so all the pigment particles settle to the bottom of the jar, keeping the thinner relatively clean. I've used this thing for 2 years now, and look how clear that thinner is. Model Man Tom did a video on how to make one of these yourself using a couple of cans. You put one can inside the other and punch a bunch of holes in the bottom of the can. Okay, the inside can. So you run your brush across the top of that can and everything falls to the bottom. Alright, I bought this at Hobby Lobby. I was cheap. Well, not cheap, lazy. And it wasn't that expensive, being honest with you. And I don't eat canned food, so I never had the cans. So I keep 2 jars of thinner, one for mixing paints, one for brushes. That way my brush thinner stays relatively clear. And again, this has a red tint because I was using red transparent paints 2 years ago. And I was brush painting it on the Polar Bear Zombie thing. Okay? So, just wanted to share that. I'm going to go ahead and let the camera roll while I detail paint this. I broke part of the steering column off, so I'm going to have to fix that. And I have to strip the paint off where that broke. That shouldn't be a problem because this thing's going to be sealed up inside the body of the car. Now, there's what we're looking at. The H didn't come out very clear, and that black button on the side looks absolutely horrible. Now, that black ink was done with a micron pen, and that's one of these guys. Alright? It's good for precision, and I wasn't wearing the Optivisor when I did it, so I messed it up. See? Always make sure you can see what you're doing. So now what I'm going to do is redo that H, and I'm going to try to redo that H. Because to the naked eye, it doesn't look too bad, and it looks like an H. But when I put it in like this, you can tell it's not perfect. And I'm going for perfection here. And again, to the naked eye, even under slight magnification, it looks fine. But it doesn't when I Optivise. Okay? So let me put the camera down here where you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to try zooming in a little bit, and I'm going to try to keep it on camera, but that's going to be a bit tough because of what I'm doing here. I know what I can do. So having you guys across from me, I got to move a few things because my desk on the side is pretty cluttered. I can move the camera over to the side and have the camera pointing at my work. So you guys got an actual good view of what I'm doing here. And I just got to keep my camera right here. Okay? That might work. Now, first things first, I'm not going to fix the H. Yeah, I should try to fix the H first. Now, I don't know if I should fix it too much because it really don't look that bad. And I'm going to try this horrible, horrible paintbrush again. And this is why I got paper underneath me, because I'm just not digging that brush. Let's try this one, the good one. It's much better. It paints a finer line, and I don't get it, but I'm not going to cry about it too much. And this Tamiya silver is not the best silver in the world. I probably should really use Tester's enamel on this. Okay, now that did the H just fine. Okay, but it also flooded the work area around it. But it looks a lot better right now. What I got to do is flood the area around it with non-silver paint. Okay? And I'm going to clean my brush off, and I'm going to use the thinner jar for brushes instead of the one for mixing paints, my paint mixer. And again, I'm using Tamiya paint, so alcohol is wonderful. Okay? Tamiya paints are very interesting paints. You can thin them with water, alcohol, and lacquer thinner. I don't know what these things really are, but very interesting stuff. Okay? It doesn't say completely what it is, but it says don't ingest it, though, on the label. And don't worry, I don't think I'm going to be ingesting any Tamiya paint anytime soon. So let's see if we can fix that black button now. And one of the problems with Optivisors is you pretty much have to be right on your piece to see your work. I mean, they've got a very fixed focal range. You have to have your work and your visor just a very precise distance away from your work. I've also been told you cannot brush paint Tamiya paints very well, but you guys are watching me. I'm doing it. Alright. Now, if you take a look at that button looks a heck of a lot better just doing that little touch-up right there. To the naked eye, it looks pretty good. Under the Optivisor, it's off a teeny bit, but not a whole heck of a lot. Okay? So now let's try to fix the recesses on the H. Now, the best way to fix that recess on that H is with thinned paint. So I bought this little thing at IKEA a long time ago, and I wish I'd bought like 10 of them at the time. That's some alcohol I'm putting in there, not Tamiya's thinner. Okay? And I'm just getting a little paint and mixing it with a tad bit of alcohol to thin it down a little bit, because I want it almost watery, like a wash. Okay? That should be about it. Because I'm not trying to paint with it. I'm trying to just fill in the areas around that H with some color so it looks more like the Honda H. And by watering the paint, it'll flow a little bit better. Now that's probably the best I'm going to get on that H. Let's get her to focus where we want. That's probably the best I'm going to get on that. To naked eye, you see an H very clearly there. Okay? Now, I'm not an expert at brush painting. You want that? Go find General Splatton. Man is awesome at brush painting. Although his channel's been dark for a little while. Alright? But back when I was a kid, all the way up until about 22, and I'm going to move the camera back up to me. I've already taken the Optivisors off. Ooh, we don't want to be that close to me. And let's put the camera back a little bit more, so I'm at a good distance. Back when I was a kid, in doing model building, and this was years upon years ago, like when I was in high school. I was scratch building stuff in high school. Alright, I scratch built this space fighter thing that was this big. Yeah, out of frame. Huge thing. And my mom threw it away and I could kill her for that. I scratch built this huge space fighter thing for a high school project. And anyhow, didn't have an airbrush. Those things were crazy expensive back then. So everything I did was with paintbrush or a rattle can. And I got good with paintbrush. No lying there. I've got models over here that were all on my shelf that are in horrible state of repair. That's one of the things I'm going to do this summer, is slowly start repairing them, getting them where they look nice again. And I'm going to need the Optivisors for this. And anyhow, they were brush painted, and I was really good at brush painting way back in the time. And I sat back for a long time and didn't build models. Guess what I'm doing now? Brush painting again. I probably am going to need to get some lacquer thinner after this one. I gotta pull the paint off where the broken knob came from, or you cannot glue it back together. I also need to pull the paint off this, so I'm going to get some lacquer thinner. Anyhow, what I was saying though is I've done a lot of brush painting in the past. I just haven't done it recently. This Honda forced me to bring it back. And I'm kind of glad I did, because I feel a lot more confident about brush painting now than I did back then. Now again, you want to see good brush painting. General Splatton, Andy X has a good tutorial up on it. Go look at those channels. I'll talk to you guys later. Here we have the rare and rarely seen thunderpaws, and he has a piece of blue twine. He's trying to massage it into something that looks like food.